Hello friend, this is Ryan Hicks of TalkToProfit.com, and today I want to talk to you about why being realistic is a treacherous mistake. Many people think that if they're keeping it real or being realistic, they're somehow being wise. Well, they might be wise, quote unquote, in the eyes of the world, but it's truly foolishness. Because all the world does when they look at being realistic, is they look at circumstances. So they look at the effect and not the cause. They think that they're going to be realistic if they look at the effect, talk about the effect, expect more of the same effect, never recognizing the cause that led to that. But you, as a person of character and substance, you as a person who knows God and walks with God, know better. You have true wisdom from God, a true light in your heart to know that that form of quote-unquote realism is absolutely disastrous. And it's treacherous against yourself if you choose to take that up. Because all you're doing is spewing forth the negativity of the world. You're expecting more of the effects that have already been received. And thus, you're causing more of those things to come into effect. You're creating an endless cycle of negativity, of problems. But you know better than that. That's what the world does. And all they're doing is empowering negativity and problems and drama and issues in their lives and keeping the goodness of God far away from themselves. But we know better than this. We know the ways of peace and prosperity. We know the ways of the Lord. The world's version of realistic is only going to lead to more needless suffering, failure, misery, and even at the very best it could possibly get is just mediocrity. And that's not what anyone wants. So it's treachery against yourself. It's treachery against others. It's a betrayal when you go out being realistic. No, what you need to be is be understanding and be wise, knowing there's a cause for those effects. You don't look to the effects. We don't walk by sight. We walk by faith, knowing that our faith gives substance to the things hoped for. Our faith is the substance of things hoped for. So we believe and we know and we have great faith and we get whatsoever we say. Because we're not talking the things of the world. We're not looking to the circumstances of life. We know those circumstances, those issues of life come from our hearts. That's why we're so diligent about guarding our hearts, about keeping it, protecting it from all the onslaught of the enemy, of the world. You know, the average person isn't actively trying to harm you. They just know no better. They only know this quote-unquote keeping it real or being realistic and being negative. They think realistic means being negative. They think positive is being unrealistic. But the reality is both people are getting what they're believing for. It's just that the world is getting more negativity, more problems, more issues. Just look at people talking up economic woes. Consequently, they're getting more economic woes. Where I know people of faith, such as myself and others, who we don't believe for any of that. The economies of this world could do whatever they want to do. But our personal economies, as I've mentioned before, are ever increasing. Our net worths are going up. We're able to give more and be more of a blessing in this world. We're not being affected in the least by the economy of the world. They are affecting themselves and believing for that negativity themselves. And yes, you can live in a virtual bubble of God's favor if you will cast off this nonsense about being realistic, which is not realistic at all. It is just being negative. It's being foolish, as the scripture says, because it's the opposite of wise. The wise person would see that there is constantly the same end result, the same effect. What is the cause of it? And for the example of the economic situation going on in the world in various countries, economics is very much based on consumer belief and what the business leaders believe. Because it's very simple that when they have a negative belief and expect the worst and believe for the worst, keeping it realistic quote unquote, what do? Well, a business leader will stop hiring. They may freeze hiring. They may cut costs. So suppliers they've been buying from, they're no longer buying from. So now those suppliers have to lay off people because they're not getting enough orders. You can see how this starts to create, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Well, the consumer end, they're hearing about recession. There's not enough. There's limitation. There's lack. So what do? They stop buying as much. Those purchases they were going to make, they put off to another time. So now the businesses are getting less money, less customers coming in. They have to let people go. Some of those people they're letting go are the consumers, who now can't buy as much as they would have bought otherwise. So you're creating this whole situation simply by beliefs, by keeping it realistic, by listening to all the people babbling about this problem and that problem. But that doesn't have to affect you in the least. God is very gracious, and He's given us this great power of our words, this great power of our thoughts. And we keep our hearts with all diligence, and we start having good issues of life, prosperous issues of life, great, glorious issues of life. Not the problems of the world, not the cares of the world, not the drama and issues and lack and limitation that they are talking up and experiencing because of their faith in it. We have a glorious life. And my friend, if your life is not glorious right now, that's all right. You now know that you have the key within you to believe for the best, to experience the best. Stop with this realism. Stop with being realistic, which, as I said, is just a fake word they use against truly being realistic, which is knowing from Spirit come all things. So do you want to believe for the worst, or do you want to believe for the best? We see the cause, we understand how these things occur, and so we create a new cause to get a different effect. And thus we go through life experiencing the best, going from glory to glory, going from prosperity to prosperity, going from blessing to blessing. Every day of our lives is increasing and getting better, an avalanche of abundance in our lives each and every day. But it's going to come by faith. And if you're listening to the world, you're giving heed to the world, including many professing Christians and pastors and leaders who are just babbling out what they've heard from the news or from what they heard from some other worldly person. If you keep giving heed to those people, you're going to get the same results they're getting. And that's not what you want. So if you're going to give heed to anyone, give heed to the Spirit of life. Give heed to the Father of lights, which all good gifts come from. And expect the best. Believe for the best. Talk the best. Think the best. And watch as your life experiences the best. My friend, I pray this is a blessing for you. May God bless you richly.